Hope you have your tinfoil hat all made and cinched down tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mickey.
Hey, thanks, Nighthawk. Guess what? It's Shiny Side Out time with Dave
and Mickey.
We're on WZZR, coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on revolution.radio. That's pretty easy to remember. Where it's home to fresh, unfiltered ideas and conversations. You'll find those in the chat room where Mickey and I are right now, and you can chat with us while we're on air. The website's also a great place to go and get your merch. Get your merch and support the station. And Mickey, you make a good point outside of being on air, and that is if you can't afford to donate to the station, which we understand, we get it, and it's not going to get any easier, and I'll talk about that a bit later on. But you can tell a friend, simply tell a friend about the station. Tell them that you heard something cool. Tell them what it was or whose show it was, and or maybe go into the archives because they're free to go in there, and maybe play something for a friend of yours that you know that they would like. One of the host shows, and let's share the burden of supporting this station. There you go. I think it's an easy way to put it. This is show number, believe it or not, 582.
280 and 500.
Thank you, Mackie. And guess what? You can either listen to us on air through FM in America or online, and you can do that through the website, or you can maybe grab an app and listen on your phone wherever you are, which is actually pretty cool. There's a bunch of apps that have Revolution Radio in their digital broadcast, but you can do it if you don't like any of that. You can just sit at home with your feet up in your favorite rocking chair, possibly listening on a Grace tabletop digital radio. It's a digital radio, granted, but it's still got the same kind of feel as one of those ones that I remember when I was a kid, my grandparents had. I'm not going to say it's wooden and has a dial that goes from almost naught to, what was it? Like 1,000 and something, right? And had shortwave, because when my grandparents had a shortwave in there as well you could listen to, which is pretty cool. If you missed Solaris' show, she's the host that comes on prior to us. She had Damien Dumar, that was publisher of Last Harvest, and they were talking about all sorts of things. Really cool, and I think the time zones conflicted greatly. And Solaris, great show, great guests. And if you don't know who Solaris is, then you need to do a few things. One, look her up online. You'll see she's an author. She's made a documentary series. She's a radio host, and she always has great guests. And do listen in for the 2 hours prior to our show starting. Yeah. Excellent. So I'm going to say now that I am broadcasting out of Darkinjung country. And Mackie, where are you today?
I'm in beautiful Durak country.
Beautiful downtown Pemulwuy. Okay, beautiful. It's beautiful. It's sunny now, but if you have a look at the radar, Mackie, you'll see that there's a pinwheel of fronts, which I've not seen before, rotating just off the south coast of Sydney. It's rotating about a point, just maybe 100 k's off the coast, and this Arctic air is joined, and we're probably going to see a lot more intermittent showers as this pinwheel of showers goes around and around. So it's pretty cool. But Mackie and I, we pay our respects to the traditional custodians of land where we both live, and pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. What Mackie, I think we should bring up a new word. You know how they had a storm and then it was a megastorm, and then it was whatever that other one was.
Okay.
Remember how they had rain bombs and all sorts of crazy names for new things that happen?
Yeah, sure.
Well, a level of crazy is escalating. And I don't know if I can just normally say, what a crazy thing that's happened this week, because I think they're getting exponentially crazier. So using the ordinary word of crazy, I don't think that does it for me anymore.
No, that's true.
He said,
No,
yeah.
We need a new level. We need a new word for the new level of crazy. So, look, I'll tell you what. I'll think about it over the first hour, and then you think about it over the first hour.
Yeah.
And the chat room is going to think about it over the first hour.
Oh, I like that.
And just before the end of the first hour, we'll just have hopefully a word or collection of words which will describe the new crazy. Because you can't say crazy anymore. You can't say crazy. You can't say astounded, astonished, surprised.
No, none of those.
You can't say insane. You can't say brainless.
It's got to be a new word.
Yes. So
totally right.
Like,
let's create one that describes this.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, Mickey. I've run out of superlatives.
Look, honestly, every civilization goes through what is called a natural evolution of existence. You have the beginning, the foundation of an empire or some kind of structure, and it goes through growth, and there are ups and downs in that. But then it reaches a pinnacle, maybe even several pinnacles, depending on the civilization. But inevitably, be it catastrophically fast or catastrophically slow, it ends. It comes to an end. It comes to a conclusion. There's a downfall. There's a downturn. Great empires have existed. None of them persisted, though. Not a one. Not a single one has persisted, except you could argue the parasites, but that's a different story yet again.
That's right.
We'll address in 600. But we are now seeing the end of our civilization as we've come, I guess over the last, I want to say 70 years since the end of World War II, pretty much ushered in our era of prosperity, more or less, in the West, especially in the West, prosperity and relative peace. There's always been a conflict. Don't forget that. There's always been a conflict every moment somewhere on the planet. But for the Western world, and we have been living in a Western-dominated world for the last 70 years, and maybe some will argue longer, but certainly American-dominated, that is coming to an end. And I will argue that more things are coming to an end.
Yes.
Our biological identity is coming to an end.
I've got one for you.
Yeah, our political identity is coming to an end. Our distinct biological identity, and by that I mean not just from a gender specific point of view, and not even purely biological, but a biological hybrid identity.
Because I think that's going to take over.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly. We'll be able to modify ourselves so much that we'll leave this species of humanity behind.
Look,
in a way. Do you know what I mean?
No, look, I think so. And in fact, if you look at science fiction novels, movies, TV shows, streaming services, whatever, right? Even games, you will find there are a couple of themes that are very, very strong. One theme that has been very strong in recent times across even a number of different genres of literature is the multi-worlds theory, or the many worlds theory, right? By Everett. Another is the eclipse or augmentation or modification of our biological identity. Meaning, number one, we ourselves are beginning to engineer ourselves, right? So we are playing with our genetic material within the human realm, though, let's say, right? Second, we are playing with our genetic material as a hybridization effort, meaning we're using genetic material from other species to either enhance us
we are,
or them.
And the plants we're using all species
yes.
of creature on plants to try and make them better.
Correct. And finally, it's a cybernetic augmentation of us, but hand in hand with that goes the creation of a non-biological intelligence.
Yeah.
So this is ushering in the end of life, as we know it. It's already started. It's already, Dave.
What
are you a man or a woman? I can't really ask you that anymore, really.
No, I can't ask what is a man or a woman.
Well, what is a man? Oh,
I'll give you a poignant example because I don't think it matters. But I'll while I've got the talking stick, I'll just tell you this isn't a scientific a medical fraternity finding that they've discovered that the human biome inside us, in our gut, is fading.
Really?
Yeah. I'll find the news story and I'll paste it in the chat room and I'll send you a copy.
Oh, jeez.
And it's disastrous, apparently.
Yeah, it's kind of strong.
Really?
Yeah.
What makes you think that, right? So, yeah. So, my first point has now left me entirely, and I was just back to what I wanted to say in the first place. No, I've got nothing. So, that's right. So you're talking about AI and cybernetic help. Throw me a bone.
Look, it is the next stage of our evolution, leaving ourselves behind in the process. I think we are moving. My point was into a kind of civilization which has no precedent in living memory or historic memory. It might have existed in the past by looking at the mythology that we all love so much, right? If you look at that, you go, oh, well, that's interesting. But ultimately, what we are playing with, and this goes with AI as well, we are moving away from the certainties we have had in our civilization. So our civilization, our empire, whatever you're going to call it, is coming to an end. The human experience is coming to an end.
That helped somewhat, but I still don't remember what I was saying. The light bulb came on.
AI? Anything with AI?
Yeah, but I was going to look back historically and say, what other times in history have we found in the geologic record that there has been abrupt loss of species and a step up of the hominids? So it's happened at least twice. One might very well have been intervention, but the loss of species on the planet has happened a number of times, and we're in the great version of that now. From a historical record of someone digging up our existence in the future, they're going to see pretty much the end of all fossils at the same point, like we do going back to other periods. But rather than finding, the evidence of a meteor strike or a comet or, a glaciation period or something like that, where there won't be one so much. So that's that. I've watched a documentary on this, and they were putting forward the argument that we've actually killed ourselves as a species. We've done it already, and we just have to wait for it to play out. And there isn't any getting away from it. We've now got all the tools to, let's say, play God, but not so much. If we can modify ourselves away from what we've got now, we would probably end up making ourselves spacefaring at the same time if we get there. Bigger brain is great, but unattractive. Look at the hell of that. you end up looking like Mr. Mackey. Right? Okay.
All of that stuff is bad. Okay.
Drugs are bad. Okay. So you end up looking like him, and you end up with a spindly body, right? Because you're not going to be muscly in space. There's nothing to do. You know, you won't even have a pen or writing implements. There'll be nothing you have to pick up. You only have to move yourself around. So I think that the natural evolution for us to do that would be to that anyway, and it doesn't matter what you say. You and I aren't, not Mickey and I, but the listeners aren't the smartest people in the room here. So this has already been worked out and decided, and it's all on paper by scientists. Yeah. And I think that's really something else. Now, Mickey, you brought this to light because AI is almost there. All the signs that we've seen former civilizations collapse are all here right now. Every last one of them. There's some countries that are holding firm to not being influenced by the West and our. Let's just call it stupidity. That's what I'm going to call it.
Sure.
Right? I don't mind if you don't agree, but they're staying well away from us because just imagine if like a Twilight Zone episode, alien ship comes down and say, well, since we've been here last, show us all the things you've done. And they quickly go through what would be the equivalent of third grader paintings on a fridge, right? Yeah. Okay, so what about all those things we told you about? What things? Oh, all that coveting, the 10 Commandments. It's pretty much the rules you should live by, right? You what? It was you. Could you imagine? So, pretty much everything that you've done in the last 30 years, you shouldn't have done. Right? You were good in the 50s. Imagine if they said that. Post-war, things were good. That's the way you should have stayed. What are you doing? Look at yourselves. Right? We're gonna take all those countries away with us and leave you with the remnants. Make a difference next time. We'll be back in 1,000 years. That'd be such a good plot. I see. Like I see that that's the thing that we should be really taking stock right now of what are we attempting to achieve? Because at the moment they're grenades over the fence into our society, having to make choices of things.
Yeah, you're 100% correct.
To distract us from what the real agenda is. And I didn't.
Yes.
Sorry, Mickey, go ahead. I've got something after this.
Go.
All right. So the most obscene exhibition of what elites do and say and how they act and how everything's about them was the coronation. The most obscene exhibition of wealth that I just think is nuts. I don't mind pomp and ceremony. I don't mind it, right? I'm a stickler for it, right? I don't mind. But when I consider that the gap between us and them is now widening to the point where we could never attain their wealth, that is that servitude I talk about. That is the separation of the elites with a chasm. It's like building a moat where we could never get across there, that we'd never be allowed. And when I saw it was like the who's who of the WEF was there. The British Prime Minister, the Speaker of the House in America, Prince Charles himself, now King Charles, all members of the WEF. In fact, King Charles, he signed the Great Reset. Think about that. Just let that soak in for a minute. the gold carriage, the carriage was made by Australia, but it's got parts from, like, they upscaled parts from tons of different things to go in there for it to be meaningful. And it's got electric windows. Believe it or not, it's got air conditioning, and it's got it's all bulletproof. It's explosion proof. Now when I watch all of that, wow, and they don't work. No, they don't need to. Right. Okay, but isn't it the son of a, no offense, but a European that came to England, right? And this is, we're doing this? Are we really doing this? Katy Perry sang at the after party. Right? I saw the who's who, Becky, in the crowd, all these people, and it's, wow, do they have real lives? Are they like, do they go to work every day? Do they have mortgages? It made me wonder. It really did. And do you know there's renovations at Buckingham Palace that's going to take another 5 years?
It's going to be very cheap, I'm sure.
They live across the street in their cottage. Cottage! Yeah. Google Maps it. Have a look. Street view it. And you tell me that's bigger than I've like 5 of my friends' families' houses put together.
It's a cottage.
It's a cottage.
What are you
the
doing,
gardener lives there normally, right?
You're killing me. What?
So, look, for me, Becky, I'm just going to say, I did watch it. I do enjoy a bit of pomp and ceremony and the history behind it all, but it's alarming that the people we watch celebrate are great reset advocates.
Look, I didn't watch it. I'm not going to watch it. I'm not interested at all, but that's just me, right? And I'm not being negative about this, but there are 2 things that we can no longer afford on this planet. There's more, but 2 major things we can't afford. You know the first one, my pet...
Billionaires.
My pet hate billionaires. Can't afford billionaires. You got to go, bye-bye, see you later.
You won the game.
Yeah. If you can't go by yourself, then we'll help you. The other is the other set of parasites that don't contribute at all, and monarchs and general royalty falls under that banner. Now, you have to understand, everybody out in the world, I am by nature not a hater. I am by nature not a hater, and I'm not just saying it, to gain sympathy here, but it's true. By nature, I am not a hater. However, certain people have proven to be parasites, and they can no longer be there. Look at the royal, aristocratic, noble houses. Doesn't really matter what kind of moniker you give them. They came into being because their ancestors were the most bloodthirsty, the most ruthless, the most underhanded, the most criminal, the most poisonous in literally in the land. That's how they started. Okay? And these are the people we go, oh yeah, look at all the great people, look at those people. And you know what really blew me away? Because I didn't watch the coronation, Dave, but I did. You can't escape it on the news.
No, it's
right?
everywhere. Yep.
You know what struck me?
What was that?
The one thing that struck me was how much still they claim a mandate from God.
Yeah, because the Church of England is connected with...
No. The king is the head of the Church of England.
That's what I'm saying. The Church of England and the monarchy are together, and the entire ceremony is driven by it.
Now, but think about that for a second. We all laugh at the Monty Python sketch. We all do. The lady in the lake.
That's right.
The sword to King Arthur. That's not a basis for formation of government.
How do you become king then? I didn't vote for you. You don't vote for a king.
Vote for a king.
I love it.
Now, we all see the truth in it, and we laugh, right? We go, ha ha. But here we are. We're watching the coronation, and that's what's happening. They're claiming divine providence and divine appointment.
That's right.
What?
So once your family is there, then the rest of it's all God.
Yeah. If I came out and went into we have it here as well in Sydney Botanic Gardens. It's like a speaker's corner, if you will, right? In Botanic Gardens. If I went there and stood in my little, box and started, talking about how God has appointed me. God has appointed me to run the world. You know what happened to me? They would lock me up for a real long time. It's what they would do. And yet here we have heads of state. In fact, 15 nations in the world still have the king as a head of state. For how much longer, we don't know. But it's still a thing. It's still there. It's still a head of... And God. It's God who put me here. Wow. I wish I had a line like that to God. I'd say, God, why don't you bring me in here? No, look. They were the most bloodthirsty. We should not admire these people in the least. In the least. They're criminals. The entire bloodlines of these people, if you want to call them that, are tainted because they've committed crimes against humanity. They've committed genocide. They have committed cultural homicide and still are. They have perverted the cause of justice. They have perverted our human ideals, if you want to call them that, right? Our what it means to be human, what it means to be free, what it means to be engaged and have agency in your destiny. Out the window, all of it. And we should not at all have them anymore. They need to go. They have to go. They have to go. I'm sorry, but in fact, look, one thing I can say, they will go sooner rather than later. It'll happen. And it'll be too late for all of us because we're all going to go sooner rather than later because of what we have brought on ourselves. In Australia, Dave, this made me angry today. It's sort of topical here in what we're discussing. They're talking about a new tax for a gas, companies, pumping up gas, natural gas. Now, Australia is an extremely resource-rich country. Extremely. It really is. We've got a lot of coal, gas, and gold, and uranium. And in fact, I think we've got the second biggest uranium known deposit in the world.
Yeah, and in fact, I was seeing somewhere else that their groundwater is contaminated with uranium.
Yeah.
And they've just discovered a brand new deposit.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now that's all wonderful, but all of that money is not benefiting Australia. All of that wealth is not benefiting Australia. Our energy prices in Australia are ridiculous. And the energy companies, both the people that pump it up or dig it up and then convert it into something usable and then sell it, are making super profits.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Hyper profits. It's actually obscene how much money they make.
That's right.
And I'm talking about money they make on top of their costs. And the Australian people they own it. All the people living in Australia, they own the resources. It's theirs. They get very little benefit from it. In fact, we get gouged for energy. $2 a liter again. Actually, more than $2.
Oh, it's $2.10 or something again.
Yeah. So this and they introduced this slightly. So they're going from paying $2.1 billion in tax to $2.6 billion in tax.
Not a poor thing. It must be awful.
And this is the problem. You see, the power structures as they exist. Like we've spoken about this before, and that's why we're close to the end anyway. The power structures, such as they are there, they're only designed to do one thing, which is to perpetuate the power structures as they exist. It sounds terrible and insane, but that's exactly what it is. So the people that are on top stay on top, and they keep exploiting everybody else. Okay, and like I said before, the only thing you need to be willing to do in order to succeed, so forget all the 11 habits of highly successful people and blah blah.
How to sell books quickly, yep.
Yeah, it's a willingness to exploit. If you have that, Bob is your uncle. And that's really all it takes, the willingness to exploit others. It doesn't really take much more than that. And I see it. I see it at work. I see it at other places work.
Mm-hmm.
And
Look, it's just common.
Disgusting.
It's common.
It's a defining feature of our civilization.
It is.
And this exploitation is not going to stop until we've destroyed ourselves, and maybe even then it will continue. But we are galloping down the path of distraction. Okay, we are destroying ourselves, and it's going to happen a lot sooner than everybody thinks, simply because we're not being told about it. It's all being whitewashed. Okay, no racial connotations here. I'm talking about whitewashing, and see, would whitewash a house or a wall. Everything's being whitewashed. There's no inkling as to how bad things are, because we're still talking about stopping climate change, or at least lessening the effects. That ship has sailed. It sailed decades ago. We just want the cottage industry of carbon credit, trading, and there's no stopping climate change.
Okay. So I'm just going to role play here for a minute. I'm big coal here in Australia, and you're the government, Mackie. You're the current government, and you're asking me that I need to stop contributing to climate change.
Stop it.
Oh, how?
No.
You can buy carbon credits. Can I? Where do I buy those from? What, online? Can I just jump online? Oh no. We have basically a global industry now for doing this. Oh, I wasn't aware of that. So how much is it going to cost me? Oh, it's going to cost you a fair bit. What do you mean a fair bit? And you work out that it's not anywhere near even. It's not even going to affect you. You sneeze that money out of your wallet, right? Yeah, cool. So that means I've bought the credits, but then am I reducing my emissions? Well, because of the credits, you're reducing your emissions. Oh, so I don't actually have to physically reduce my emissions. No, that's the beauty of this thing, you see. You just keep buying these credits. Oh, so it's kind of like just like a tax? Oh, no, it's not a tax. Oh, no, we're not doing that. We're not raising taxes. What we're doing is you've got to offset the carbon that you've... Goodness me. And you've got to offset the carbon you're producing in order to be green. Right. All right. So I've bought the credits. So how long do the credits last? Oh, it's forever. Really? So if, say, I bought the whole of South America, because I can afford it. I run big coal here in Australia, so I can afford it. With those prices, right? I could buy the whole of South America. How's that going to do for me? Oh, you probably never have to. You could probably offload some of those if you own all of it. Really? I could sell those on again. Yeah, sell them on. It's kind of like the fiat system with money, Becky. You can just lend it out because there's no proof that you actually have stuff there that's offsetting your carbon. They think about trees growing in a forest, and trees get big and they capture the carbon, and when they get old and they fall down, guess what happens to that carbon? It just goes back in the atmosphere again. It's captured temporarily, and it's not permanently captured. If we were getting trees, just mowing trees down and burying them in a huge pit, cut off from this planet, from oxygen and moisture and everything, right? That's capturing it. If you cut trees down and you make furniture for people's houses, you can capture that for about 100 years. Luckily, if you're more, because, furniture that's made of real wood, people want to keep. Think about that. All that, I'm not going to say the wrong brand, the Swedish brand of Nearly Furniture, you buy that stuff and then it's on the curbside a couple of years later because it's rubbish. And then it goes in the landfill and then it exhales all its carbon again. You've just got to be aware of what really is carbon, net new carbon, And the majority of all the carbon on the planet is power production. The majority. More than you can imagine. The motor vehicle in a private use is less than 1% of the 6% your entire nation is making for transportation. So transportation on a whole is only 6% of your entire nation's production. No one's talking about that. And it's gone. There's no way we can ever claw back just how far down the road we've gone. But not granted, this is the position that I stand. I know Meki has a similar-esque view, and that is we don't live in a postcard. It's still thawing from the last time everything froze, and it's only getting back to what it was, finding equilibrium again. There's been many more methane-producing buttholes from herbivores on the planet than there exists today, even with our huge cattle needs. Even with our poultry and our cattle, just for a McDonald's burger, for instance, there's been more wildlife in existence producing methane, which is even worse than driving your car and producing your carbons out of your car as a greenhouse gas. Even worse. So just think about that, because farming after big coal, farming's next as the next highest producer of greenhouse gases. And they're not changing that. They're not going to put all the cows underground and have pipes. Imagine if you had cows on the ground with pipes in their butt and you were just harvesting the methane. That's good. Do that. Why don't we do that? So for me, Meki, I think it's busted. If it was Mythbusters, I'd say it's busted. This whole thing, the whole carbon credits, carbon reduction, force people to make choices for EVs when it does nothing to the environment anyway.
And that's really the point of it. It's a puppet show, right? It's a game that's being played, and it's a game. It's like Wall Street. It's all the same. It's all the same, and none of it is really any. Okay, sorry. So the fact that something is happening in the world, that's real enough. We see, we see increased temperatures, we see more fires and floods and storms. We see all of that. Don't really know what causes it. We're not sure what causes it, and we are certainly not sure what the knock-on effects are. There's stuff happening all the time. Our models don't know it all. What I do know for a fact, and I've been saying it for a long time, is that these things are going to start happening a lot faster than our models would predict.
Yes.
And they already have. So we're not talking about something that is going to happen. It is happening, right? It's a happening activity. It is not something that we can wait for. It's also something that we can no longer stop. It cannot be stopped because we wouldn't even know where to start. Even if we shut down everything today, it wouldn't stop. And the funny thing is this, Dave, we spoke about carbon credits.
Yes.
And the big ruse they are, and I completely agree with you. The other big ruse is, in my opinion, electric cars. It's a big ticket item. People, they're really buying into it, and they're getting, oh, look at me, hurrah! And I spoke about this before. I don't want to beat it in a horse, but just very quickly, an electric car is worse for the environment than a regular carbon-fueled car. Oh no, Maggie, that's not true.
You're crazy.
Unfortunately, it is. Now, just think about energy conversion and energy loss. Now, I don't know if you've done physics, but in everything that we do, moving from one form of energy, like say kinetic energy into heat energy or some such, there's a loss of energy, a net loss due to friction or gravity or
heat.
Atmospheric conditions. But there's always a bleed of a loss.
Heat is another one.
Heat is massive, yeah. So as I generate electricity, I can store it, I can transfer it, but there's a loss. And it's calculated in, so we always have enough. But how is this electricity generated? Now, the cars that you're driving, they don't actually generate electricity for themselves. It'd be nice if they did, but they don't. You have to charge them. That's right. That's why you have the charging stations. And those electrical charges are coming from somewhere. They're coming from Oh, coal-fired power plants, gas power plants, any kind of power plant really, and very few come from renewable or so-called renewable energy sources such as wind, solar, etc., etc. Right? So there's only a small percentage that come from renewable, but the energy that's being generated, right? There's a certain net amount lost. As you burn coal, you generate a certain amount of electricity, and you can work out exactly how much that is because we know all the variables. Now, as the electricity goes from wherever it's produced to your car, there is a net loss of electricity, of energy, right? So you're actually using more electricity than your car needs to charge because of the loss. Okay, so there's that. Whereas if I put petrol, for example, in my car directly, right, I'm using a large amount of that energy in my car due to the controlled explosions that are happening inside my engine. Okay, and our engines are getting more and more efficient every year. They have been for over 100 years. Our petrol engines have become quite efficient at burning petrol. I'm not saying it's great. I'm just saying they're quite efficient. Now, don't forget that the electricity that you're consuming in your Tesla was created by burning fossil fuels. So yes, your Tesla car or whatever electricity you have doesn't generate carbon emissions directly, but it did as part of the production of the energy that you're consuming. On top of that is the production of the battery. The production of the battery leaves a massive carbon footprint behind. Okay, just to be clear. So to think is that all of a sudden electric cars are going to solve the world's ills is even more insane than thinking we can stop climate change.
We're still going to require diesel because you can't mine anything without diesel. There's no large enough, because if you put EVs in one of those really huge trucks, the big yellow ones that climb out of the open cut mines, Mackie, if you made those run by batteries, they wouldn't make it out of the mine.
That's correct.
They'd be too heavy. The battery weight would exceed the load capacity of the vehicle.
Think about that for a second. Oh, it has a really long, thick cable.
Yeah, that's right. It's tethered. It's tethered to the sky.
I used to have a
covered in
remote
solar
control.
panels.
When I was a kid, we were poor, right? I grew up in the 60s and 70s, so I had a remote control car which consisted of a box with a steering wheel, okay, and an on and off button, and a really a longish cable to the car that I was driving.
Instead of it being radio controlled, it was remote controlled.
It was, yeah. Most of the time, the cable just pushed the car.
It pushed the car along on its own.
There was no independent driving there. No, look. But this is the great myth, and all of these things are red herrings, and you have to ask yourselves, well, why am I being told this story? Why am I being sold these lemons? What's going on here? Well, it's distraction. It's distractions while other things are taken away from you. Now, all of the things we discuss here are known to the parasites. There's nothing we talk about here that they don't already know. Okay, and they're making sure that as they have for the past whatever time, they're going to make sure they're going to be fine, and all of you are not. So this is really the game. The game is to distract you sufficiently from the real problems while everything around you falls apart. That actually it's not just symptomatic for our time. It's been the symptom of empire decline throughout history. And those entities just pull up stumps and go on to the next country. I mean, they if you look at the architecture of empire, you will find there a number of distinct empires that have been around for thousands of years. Not in the same location, not speaking the same language, but the architecture has remained very similar throughout that time.
That rings my bell, Mickey. Rings my bell. Yeah,
it's a fact. It's what it is.
So if I at any time in history, said, how about those fat cats up on Capitol Hill, with their snouts in the trough, you can think of a time in history where that is also relevant. It may not
Yeah.
be Capitol Hill, but when they become self-obsessed and self-motivating within their, like, let's call it regime, right? Where it appears to be open debauchery, all the deadly sins, including greed. That is right near the end. It's always been right near the end. Before that, you can imagine people sitting around a table with clipboards and an agenda, and everyone's working the way it should work in a democracy run place, whether it is or it's a dictatorship, I don't really care. But where people are making ordered choices for the benefit of people rather than themselves or their group of friends. And once you get to that, I just keep thinking of Rome, and you got a rag on a stick to wipe your butt. Shared rag on a stick. Like that to me is just repulsive.
Always poop on Tuesdays. There's a new rag on a stick.
That's when the guy comes to change it. Right. And I'm just going to say that's what we don't understand today. Science does, though, is that apart from any diseases that could be transmitted to people, there is something interesting about the biome, which I mentioned a bit earlier at the top of the show. And gut biome is actually kept in feces. So they're doing this today. If you've got ABS or IBS, I think IBS it is, not ABS, that's a brake system. So if you have IBS, you can take a transplant of someone's poop into your butt, and it actually can help you. Their biome can then grow within you and fix your ailing biome, because that's all it really is your biome. And I've shared a story, even though it's the old story on this from 2019, but there was a recent article that just came out the other day where the first story about the biome was about there may be a problem, but now they've definitely pointed at what there is as an issue, and we're all doomed. Doomed, I tell you.
Yeah.
So,
but I think you need to stress the importance of the. If we don't have a functioning biome, we can no longer digest our food.
That's
properly.
correct.
And we can no longer, properly relieve ourselves, etc., etc. Like, there are two places in your body. If they're okay, then chances are that you're okay. Okay, I'm not saying that as an absolute, but chances are, if those two places are okay, then you can live a fairly healthy life. And that's your mouth.
Yep.
Your mouth has to be in good health, and your gut.
Yep.
All of your gut. Okay? Those are the two places that you really have to look after. If they are not well, you're not well.
So when you're in hospital, before you could be discharged, you've got to be able to do 1s and 2s. And regular, and you've got to be back to normal again. So if you were to consume, there's an Australian fruit, Meki, that looks like a melon, but if you eat it when it looks like it's ripe to your eye, it isn't, and it's bad for you. It actually kills your biome, and you end up dying. And some of the early explorers that travelled Australia trying to look for things that they just went, look, it's pretty much just desert. You leave the tree line, and it's desert until you hit the water at the other side. Good luck with that. We found some paths, but these were used by the Aboriginals, and man, some huge kangaroos, 8 foot tall. Yeah, sure you did. Yeah, you just ate that fruit, didn't you? Yeah, I did. Yeah. So the fruit itself, most everything in Australia that looks like food you can't eat, and everything doesn't look like food is more than likely food source. And so that's what happens. You eat this unprepared melon, looks like a melon, and it isn't, and it'll slowly kill you. Well, you kill you. It kills inside you, and then you die. An awful, slow death of malnutrition. So, yeah, just going to say, look, it's a thing. Make sure. And I was trying to think, maybe 4 minutes left. I was thinking, what might be leading to this destruction of our biome? It's probably all the chemicals.
Oh, 100%.
All the numbers that are in everything that we eat. The near food experiences.
Yeah. In fact, micro and nanoplastics have been found, well, pretty much everywhere now.
And the forever chemicals are in rain now.
Yeah. And we don't know. Well, we think it's not good, but we don't know what that actually means. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel right. We don't think it's good. We just don't know. Are
you a tobacco executive from the 60s?
That's right.
We think it's not good, but we're not sure.
But it calms your nerves, and that's important.
Yeah.
So look, and this is really the problem. It's all the red herrings that are dangled in front of our faces, that are distracting us from reality, as it were. Now, at the beginning of the hour, Dave and I put out the challenge to come up with new words to describe the new insanities that are plaguing us in this world. And I will put forward a couple. I'm hoping that maybe someone in the chat room will feel inspired to add maybe a couple more.
Mm-hmm.
I have two, and Dave likes the second one. The first one is lunasteria, lunacy and hysteria. Lunasteria. We're facing down complete lunasteria, or frenzerdity. Frenzerdity and frenzy.
Yeah.
I like frenzerdity too. Frenzerdity has something I don't know, untangible. Frenzerdity. If someone has got something better, I'm happy to entertain that. But at this point, a couple entries are lunasteria and frenzerdity.
Frenzerdity, I think, Mickey, to me, that it does it. It's
nice.
It says everything about it. It's a really nice combination of letters.
Right? I think so. But look, we have to come up with. In fact, look, the truth is this, right?
Apart it's a frenzied absurdity.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, absolutely. Apart from our civilization coming to a conclusion in many ways, we have to invent. We have to invent before we invite. We have to invent a raft of new words and contexts.
Mm-hmm.
They, them. Is it they, them, or et, or shim, or what would you call a cybernetic organism that is of an indeterminate sex? What would you call a biological entity that is half tiger, half man, of indeterminate sex? I mean, I don't even know where to begin starting on this grammar, to be honest with you.
Well, that's perfect circle, because the thing that I was trying to suggest that I forgot at the top of the show was actually if seven women and 7 non-binary originally males went into a cave, and 1,000 years later you dug them up, you would see 7 women and 7 men.
You're so narrow, oppressor.
Look, I'm being oppressed. Look, this is the end of the first hour. There's a very short break, and then we're back again, and we're going to be talking about the Third Reich and the occult, part 7. And if you're on YouTube, there's a separate stream for that one.